Lately, something feels off, like the world you were taught to trust is breaking. Politics, money, truth, none of it feels real anymore. And maybe, just maybe, you've wondered, is it me? Or is everything really falling apart? You're not crazy, you're awakening. Because the world is falling apart, but not in the way you've been taught to fear. The collapse is already underway, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. The media screams louder than ever, but somehow says less. The talking heads recycle outrage masked as truth. And deep down, you know, it's not just noise, it's a distraction. Politics feels like theatre, a scripted drama with no heroes, only actors. Every promise feels hollow, every crisis manufactured. You try to keep up, but the deeper you look, the less it makes sense. And then there's money. This thing we're told defines success, worth, even reality. But what is it now? A number on a screen? Printed digits backed by what exactly? The economy is strong, they say, but your rent just doubled. Your groceries cost more than your car used to. And still, they tell you everything is fine, but it's not fine. And you know it. The systems that once held this world together, or so we believed, are crumbling. Not just politically, not just financially, spiritually, energetically, and you feel it in your bones, in your relationships, in your sleepless nights. In your questions no one around you seems to ask out loud. This isn't just a bad year or a rough patch in history. It's a rupture, a shedding. The veil is thinning, and the illusions are falling with it. Because what's collapsing is the old world. The world of control, of fear, of systems built to keep you asleep. And what's being born, slowly, painfully, is something entirely different, something ancient, something real, something free. So no, you're not losing your mind. You're gaining clarity. You're not falling apart. You're waking up in a world that is. And this awakening, it's not random. It's not accidental. It's part of something much, much bigger. The collapse is only the beginning. Shall we keep going? You look around and wonder, why does it all feel so chaotic? Why are governments collapsing under the weight of their own contradictions? Why does the news twist and turn until truth feels like smoke? Always shifting, never solid. Why does the economy feel like quicksand, no matter how hard you try to stay afloat? The answer isn't just corruption. It isn't just incompetence. It's deeper than that. What you're feeling is the unraveling of an old frequency, a global system built on illusion, cracking at the foundation. For centuries, power has been centralized, held by a few, controlled by narratives, but those narratives are failing. And when the story falls apart, the world that believed in it begins to fall with it. Political lies are nothing new, but now they're unraveling in real time. The curtain is pulled back. People are waking up and realizing these leaders were never meant to save us. They were meant to manage us. And the media, what was once a source of information, has become a weapon of confusion. Each headline feels designed not to inform, but to divide, to trigger, to polarize, to keep you watching, clicking, fearing. Because fear sells. Outrage holds attention, and distraction keeps you from asking the real questions. And then there's money. The economy wasn't designed to support life. It was designed to extract from it, to reward those at the top, while feeding anxiety to the rest. Inflation, debt, scarcity. These aren't just economic conditions. They're psychological weapons, tools to keep you small, dependent, trapped. But here's what most don't see. This collapse is not just destruction, it's revelation, like a forest fire that clears the dead wood so new life can rise, like an earthquake that exposes what was always unstable beneath the surface. This isn't just decay, it's transition. We are shifting from a world built on hierarchy to one built on harmony, from centralization to decentralization, from control to connection. The age of Pisces, an age of institutions, dogma, and top-down authority, is ending. And the age of Aquarius, an age of transparency, inner truth, and awakened community, is beginning. But transitions are messy. They stir the dust. They bring shadows to the surface. And that's what you're feeling now. The breakdown is necessary because what no longer serves the soul cannot survive the shift. So if you feel overwhelmed, disoriented, or like you're standing in the middle of a storm, you are. But that storm is sacred. It's tearing down what's false to make space for what's real. And you're not here to run from the collapse. You're here to walk through it, awake, aware, and ready. Shall we keep going? We were promised order, safety, a world that made sense. If only we followed the rules. Study hard, get a job, trust the experts, obey the law, vote, consume, don't question. This was the promise of the Matrix, a carefully designed system built to give the illusion of control, fairness, and structure. But something has changed. The cracks are showing, and more of us are beginning to see through the mask. Because what do you do when the order you were told to trust begins to betray you? You turn on the news and hear conflicting truths, experts contradicting each other, institutions backpedaling, scandals swept under the rug until they erupt again. Louder, uglier, harder to deny. You look at politicians who speak in rehearsed performances, not from integrity. You watch corporations speak of values while exploiting the planet. You see banks collapse and billionaires profit from the rubble. And the people, the everyday souls just trying to live with dignity, are left to carry the weight. This isn't disorder. This is disclosure. The veil is lifting. The systems built on power, profit, and performance are no longer able to hold their illusion. It's not just that things are broken, it's that they were never whole to begin with. And now the illusion is disintegrating. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, when what you see doesn't match what you've been told, and it creates a pressure inside, a tension, an unease that whispers, something isn't right. You might feel it in your body, tight chest, racing mind, difficulty sleeping. Not because you're broken, but because the world you were taught to believe in is. We were raised to believe in systems of justice, yet we see injustice go unpunished every day. We were taught to trust in democracy, yet the voices of the people are drowned out by money. We were promised security, yet anxiety is a global epidemic. And for a while, many of us played along. Not because we believed, but because we didn't know there was another way. We took the job, we paid the debt, we followed the script. But deep down, the soul was whispering, this isn't it. This isn't truth. This isn't freedom. And now, more than ever, people are beginning to listen to that whisper. We are awakening not into chaos, but into clarity. The Matrix, this artificial order of false certainty, is no longer sustainable, because the soul doesn't thrive in cages, even if those cages are comfortable, even if they come with health insurance and performance reviews. We are reaching a collective threshold, a point where the old stories no longer satisfy the hunger of the spirit. Disillusionment is not failure. It's the beginning of seeing clearly. And once you see the cracks in the matrix, You can never unsee them. Now the question becomes, what lives beyond it? Shall we continue? The control paradigm was never built on freedom. It was built on fear. It needed you to obey without question, to conform without clarity, to seek validation outside yourself, from governments, corporations, religions, media. Because as long as you believed the answers lived out there, you'd never realize the truth already lived in here. This is how control works, not always with chains, but with beliefs. You were told how to live, how to think, what success looks like, what failure feels like. You were taught to be small, to chase approval, to trust authority more than your own intuition. But something has shifted. The curtain is thinning, and what's behind it isn't as powerful as it once appeared. Because here's the truth. Control only works when people remain asleep. It needs you to stay distracted, divided, and disempowered. But when people begin to think for themselves, ask questions, seek inner wisdom, feel deeper truths, the entire foundation begins to crumble. This isn't rebellion. This is awakening. The systems that relied on silence are now facing billions of voices. Voices that are tired of lies, tired of manipulation, tired of being told who they are and what they're worth. And those systems, the ones built on keeping the masses afraid, they're panicking because fear doesn't work the way it used to. Once you taste truth, even for a moment, you can never go back. We are seeing it in real time. Governments trying to tighten their grip, censorship rising in the name of safety, economic systems inflating, then collapsing, while the wealthy scramble to protect their illusion of permanence. But none of it is working. Because when the soul begins to remember itself, no structure can contain it. The control paradigm is losing its grip, not just because the system is faulty, but because human consciousness is evolving. More people are trusting their own eyes, their own energy, their own knowing. They're realizing that real freedom doesn't come from permission, it comes from presence. And once that spark ignites, the old structures can't survive, because you can't control people who've reclaimed their power. You can't manipulate those who see beyond the narrative. You can't sell fear to those who've remembered love. This is not the end of the world. This is the end of a very old program, one that was designed to suppress spirit and glorify systems. It served its time, it taught its lessons, but now we're ready for something more, something real, something rooted in truth, not power, connection, not coercion, creation, not control. And so, as the paradigm dissolves, don't fear the collapse. Celebrate the awakening, because what's falling apart was never meant to last. Apocalypse. The word alone brings images of fire, chaos, end times. But what if we've misunderstood it? In its original Greek, apocalypsis doesn't mean destruction. It means unveiling, a revelation, a moment when what was hidden must be seen. And that's exactly what's happening now. The systems weren't just broken, they were built that way, designed to distract, divide, and dominate. But for generations, most couldn't see it. The illusion was too polished, wrapped in patriotism, marketed as freedom, sanitized by media, and defended by institutions that swore they were here to protect us. We didn't question it, because questioning was dangerous. We were told, trust the experts, follow the money, believe the headlines. But deep down, you knew something wasn't right. And now, the veil is burning. Governments once seen as protectors are exposed as puppets for corporate empires. News channels once seen as truth now feel like theatre. Scripted, slanted, strategic. The economy? A casino rigged to benefit the top 1%, while the rest are told to work harder. As the price of living rises and hope quietly erodes, this isn't accidental, it's structural. But here's the revelation. This collapse is a gift, because when lies collapse, truth emerges. When control crumbles, consciousness awakens. It's why so many feel overwhelmed, like they're seeing the world with new eyes, but don't know where to go next. You're not alone. You're just ahead. You were born for this time, not to run from the collapse, but to see through it, to witness the old world fall, and help breathe life into something new. The apocalypse isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to remember who we are. When the noise is stripped away, when the false idols fall, when the mirrors crack, and the soul finally sees itself. So when the world shakes, and everything you thought was solid begins to slip, don't panic, don't numb out, don't turn back. This is the prophecy unfolding, not in temples or scrolls, but in your lifetime. Your lifetime. The end is also the beginning, and your awakening is part of the revelation. Everything is energy. It's not just spiritual poetry, it's quantum fact. From the heartbeat of a galaxy to the thoughts in your mind, all of it vibrates. And as the earth rises in frequency, so do we. What once matched our vibration, the systems, structures, and beliefs, now feel heavy, dense, out of sync. That's not your imagination. It's resonance. We're moving into higher consciousness, and these outdated systems, they simply can't hold the new energy because they were never built to. They were built on fear, on hierarchy, on control. And fear can't coexist with truth. Control can't harmonize with freedom. Manipulation shatters when met with presence. The matrix, the control grid, was fine-tuned to a low frequency. Scarcity, division, shame, survival. But when you start vibrating with compassion, clarity, sovereignty, you start to short-circuit the program. And that's what we're seeing now, everywhere. The educational system is collapsing because memorizing facts to serve an industrial machine no longer aligns with awakened minds seeking meaning. The political system is collapsing because binary battles and false choices can't contain a humanity that's remembering unity. The economic system is collapsing because when you vibrate from worth and creativity, you stop buying from fear. You begin to see you were never broken. You were just operating in a system that couldn't support your frequency. And now that you're rising, everything not in alignment must fall. This isn't punishment, it's physics. When frequency shifts, form must follow. And what no longer resonates, disintegrates. But here's the part they don't tell you. It's not just the world that's changing. You are the signal. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your perception is expanding. Your body, your thoughts, your intuition, all becoming more attuned to the real, the raw, the radiant. And so, when you walk into old spaces, toxic jobs, manipulated media, fear-based dogma, it doesn't feel the same anymore. Because it isn't. You've changed, and now the world must respond. That's why the chaos feels personal, because in many ways it is. You're not just witnessing the collapse, you're accelerating it with your vibration, your choices, your voice, your presence. The systems are gasping for air, not because they're strong, but because you stopped feeding them. And the moment enough of us embody this new frequency, the entire game changes. This isn't spiritual optimism. It's energetic inevitability. The old world can't hold new energy. And that's the most powerful revelation of all. For thousands of years, ancient astrologers spoke of great cosmic ages, epochs of human evolution guided by the stars. And now, we've entered one of the most radical shifts of all, the Age of Aquarius. This isn't just about zodiac signs or horoscopes. It's an energetic climate, a vibrational shift that shapes the consciousness of entire civilizations. And Aquarius, it doesn't come quietly. It's the energy of rebellion, of revolution, of liberation through chaos. Aquarius tears down what no longer serves. It questions everything: authority, tradition, hierarchy. It demands why, who benefits, what else is possible. Under Aquarian influence, we see the rise of decentralization. Central powers begin to fracture. Old institutions lose their grip. People start organizing horizontally, not vertically. The crowd becomes the power. The individual becomes the innovator. This is why we're seeing an explosion of technology, of crypto, of AI, of systems that bypass gatekeepers. Because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, the planet of shock, disruption, electric transformation. It breaks the system not just to watch it burn, but to make space for something radically better. It's collective uprising, but not through violence, through awakening. We're stepping into an era where freedom of thought isn't optional, it's survival. And the more the old world tightens its grip, with censorship, surveillance, manipulation, the more the Aquarian wave swells beneath it. You feel it, don't you? That quiet resistance inside you. The knowing that you weren't born to obey. That your voice, your truth, your vision matter. That's Aquarius. It whispers, you don't have to fit in. You were born to break the mold. And millions are starting to hear it. From farmers building local food systems, to artists rejecting corporate labels, to entire generations questioning capitalism, war, and the meaning of success. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's an evolutionary nudge, a return to soul sovereignty. In the Aquarian age, the guru falls and the mirror rises. You become your own teacher, your own healer, your own guide. Community becomes conscious. Technology becomes spiritual. Truth becomes collaborative. This doesn't mean it's smooth. Aquarius energy is intense. It shatters illusions, sometimes violently, but not to destroy us. To wake us up, because the old ways are crumbling, not because they're strong, but because we're ready. Ready to think for ourselves, to unite across borders, to innovate without asking for permission. This is what the Age of Aquarius brings. Not a prophecy, not a trend, a frequency. And you're not here to wait for it. You're here to embody it, because you are the uprising. And this time, the revolution is within. Something profound is happening beneath the chaos. Not just in governments, corporations, or religions, but in the way we relate to power itself. For centuries, the structure of the world has been top down. Someone above you decided the rules: the priest, the king, the politician, the CEO. You obeyed or faced consequences. This was hierarchy, a pyramid of control built on fear, loyalty, and conditioned dependence. It told you where you belonged, how much you were worth, what was possible, and what wasn't. But now, that structure is cracking, because something ancient is reawakening inside you. Something that doesn't submit to hierarchy. Something that remembers your sovereignty. The soul doesn't follow orders. It aligns. There's a difference. Obedience is born of fear. Alignment is born of inner truth. And when the collective starts listening to soul, the old systems, the rigid hierarchies, can't survive. They weren't built for that kind of freedom. That's why we're seeing unprecedented breakdowns, religions losing followers, governments losing trust, educational and economic institutions unraveling, not because people are lazy or rebellious, but because these systems no longer resonate. The energy has shifted, and so must the design. We're moving from vertical power to horizontal wisdom, from command to communion, from the few deciding for the many to the many awakening within themselves. This is the death of hierarchy. And it doesn't mean anarchy, it means coherence, not enforced by control, but born through resonance. In the new paradigm, leadership doesn't dominate, it reflects. It doesn't rule, it serves. It asks not, how do I keep them in line? But how do I stay in alignment with something greater? This transition is uncomfortable because we've been trained to wait for permission, to climb ladders, to earn validation. But soul doesn't need credentials. It only needs clarity. And when you move from that place, you don't compete, you contribute. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what feels true? The matrix of control feeds on conformity, but the new earth is birthed through authenticity. Every time you choose your inner knowing over outer pressure, you dismantle a piece of the old world. You become part of something emergent, a field of energy where everyone is a node. No one above, no one below, just presence, purpose, and participation. This is soul-up leadership, not built on status, but on frequency. And you didn't come here to be managed. You came here to remember that truth doesn't trickle down. It rises from within. And when enough of us live that way, the old structures won't just fall, they'll become irrelevant. Truth isn't something that waits patiently in silence. It rises, it leaks, it shatters illusions when the world least expects it. And now, it's everywhere, in headlines, in hidden documents, in whispers that echo across social platforms like digital campfires, where people gather not for entertainment, but revelation. We are watching the scaffolding of falsehood collapse in real time. Scandals that would have once been buried beneath decades of distraction are now erupting into the mainstream. Government corruption, corporate manipulation, sacred truths twisted by institutions for power. It's not one system breaking down. It's the coordinated unraveling of a global illusion. You're not just witnessing random chaos, you're witnessing cosmic timing. There's a force behind this moment, one that doesn't obey human calendars or political agendas. It's the pulse of an age that demands truth. Aquarius doesn't tolerate deception. Its essence is illumination. And when that current surges through the collective, secrets cannot hold. Hidden agendas leak like oil from rusted machinery. Leaders fumble, institutions scramble, and the people begin to see. Even in the darkest places, light is breaking through. Whistleblowers, leaked files, uncensored voices. These aren't just brave individuals, they are instruments of a collective awakening. Their timing is not by chance. It aligns with an energetic shift sweeping across consciousness, one that whispers to the soul, you deserve to know. The Age of Aquarius is not polite. It rips the veil. It disrupts the program. It asks hard questions, not for the sake of answers, but to shake us awake. Why is this happening now? Why are long-buried truths surfacing at once? Because the frequency of the planet is rising, and anything built on lies cannot ascend with it. That's why exposure feels relentless. Why every institution, from politics to religion to science, is being questioned. Not because we suddenly became more cynical, but because we became more tuned in. When your soul begins to vibrate at a higher level, anything untrue becomes unbearable. You feel it, you sense it. You know when something doesn't align, even if you can't yet explain why. This moment isn't just about finding the truth out there. It's about unlocking the truth within. Because as the lies of the world unravel, so do the illusions we've accepted about ourselves. We begin to question not just systems, but identities, beliefs, histories, even time itself. And in the shadows of collapse, something glows. A knowing, a memory, a flicker of the eternal. That's what this apocalypse is really about. Not destruction, but disclosure. The root of the word apocalypse means unveiling. And what's being unveiled is you. Because when the world stops pretending, so can you. It's happening everywhere. People are waking up. Not all at once, and not all in the same way, but the shift is undeniable. Quiet questions have become loud realizations. The things that used to feel normal now feel heavy, wrong, distorted. We're not just surviving the chaos, we're starting to see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is mass awakening. But awakening is a threat. Because a system built on control can only survive if the people stay asleep. So while consciousness rises, the machine fights back. Not with bullets, but with illusions. With headlines designed to divide. With entertainment that numbs. With algorithms that feed anxiety and keep truth buried under 1,000 distractions. This isn't new. Noam Chomsky once described it perfectly. Manufactured consent. A system where the media doesn't tell you what to think. It tells you what to think about. The narrative is shaped, curated, and repeated until it becomes invisible. Until it becomes reality. But now, that reality is fracturing. The cracks are spreading. And more people are stepping through. We've reached a crossroads. On one side, mass awakening. A collective remembering of who we are and what we came here to do. On the other, manufactured consent. A carefully designed dream meant to keep us passive, obedient, distracted. The choice is becoming more visible, and it's becoming harder for the system to hold the illusion. The tools they once used, fear, shame, scarcity, are losing their grip. People are tired of being afraid, tired of being lied to, tired of the emptiness that comes from chasing someone else's version of life. And so they're unplugging, meditating, questioning, leaving jobs, starting movements, creating their own meaning. And the system, it panics, because consent is no longer automatic, obedience is no longer assumed, and trust, the lifeblood of control, is evaporating. That's why the noise is getting louder, the distractions more intense, the fear more amplified. It's not because they're winning, it's because they're losing. Still, awakening isn't easy. It comes with grief, disillusionment, anger. It hurts to realize how much of your life was shaped by things that were never true. It hurts to realize how deeply we've been programmed. Not just by systems, but by stories. Stories about who we are, what's possible, and what we must fear. But once that pain passes, clarity emerges, and from clarity comes power. You start to see the patterns. You notice the manipulation. You feel your sovereignty returning, not as a reaction, but as a remembrance. That's what awakening is. It's not just a rebellion. It's a reconnection, And no amount of manufactured noise can stop a soul that's beginning to remember. Because once the people awaken, truly awaken, no system of control can survive. Not anymore. Politics has become a theatre, a stage where actors wear different colours, red and blue, but read from the same script. It's a spectacle of division, not a mechanism of change. And people are starting to see it. For years, we've been trained to pick a side, to believe that one party holds the answers while the other is the enemy. But beneath the surface, the lines blur, promises change, agendas overlap, and the deeper truth begins to emerge. That left versus right is an illusion, because true power doesn't live in the spotlight. It lives in the shadows, in think tanks, lobbying firms, and unelected institutions that never appear on your ballot. It lives in the hands of corporations who fund both sides of the aisle, in central banks that print money while you work to earn it, in intelligence networks that shape foreign and domestic policy behind closed doors. The political show is falling apart, not because it's no longer working, but because it's no longer convincing. People are beginning to notice that real change rarely comes through elections, that no matter who's in power, wars continue, wealth inequality grows, surveillance expands. It's not that politics is broken, it's functioning exactly as it was designed, to maintain control, not to create liberation. The Age of Aquarius demands truth, transparency, decentralization. And these qualities are completely incompatible with the political systems we've inherited. Those systems were built for a world that no longer exists, a world of hierarchy, secrecy, and passive obedience. But we're no longer passive. You've likely felt it. That inner pull to step away from the noise, to stop arguing over policies that never truly change your life, to see through the manufactured outrage, to realize that while the masses debate cultural issues, decisions about their future are being made in boardrooms and back channels. We're not meant to be governed by division. We're meant to be guided by inner truth. And that's why this system is crumbling. The approval ratings are dropping. The trust is gone. Politicians speak, but fewer people are listening. The performance has become predictable. The narrative's recycled. And the awakening soul begins to ask, what if the entire framework is the distraction? Not to say all politics is evil. There are those with integrity, those who try to work within the system to bring light. But the system itself was not built for truth. It was built for control. And you can't fix a corrupted design with noble intentions alone. So the collapse isn't chaos. It's cleansing. As the old paradigm breaks down, a new one is forming. Not from a party or a policy, but from people reclaiming their voice, their values, their vision. People building communities, speaking their truth, stepping out of the binary and into sovereignty. Because in the end, awakening means this: you stop waiting for someone else to lead you. And you realize the power was never in the system. It was always in you. For decades, the media was the voice of authority. The screen in the living room, the paper on the doorstep, the breaking news banner that made your heart race. It told us what to fear, who to trust, and what to think. It was never just about informing. It was about framing. But now, something's shifted. The spell is breaking. People are seeing through the script, the rehearsed narratives, the sensationalized headlines, the repetition that echoes across every channel as if one voice controls them all. And maybe that's because, in many ways, one voice does. 6 major corporations own over 90% of the media in the United States. That's not freedom of the press. That's a bottleneck of perspective. a funnel that turns infinite truth into a singular message, shaped to serve power, not people. They called it news. But often it was programming. Subtle, strategic, psychological. Studies in neuroscience and media theory have shown that repeated exposure to fear-based content rewires the brain, keeping the nervous system on high alert, triggering fight or flight responses, and dulling critical thought. It wasn't just information, it was manipulation. And for a long time, it worked. But now, the cracks are visible. More people are turning off the noise, seeking independent voices, questioning the contradictions, noticing how every tragedy is politicized, how every movement is spun, how dissent is silenced, and how truth is filtered through the lens of corporate interests. They told us to trust the experts, but those experts were often funded by the very industries they were supposed to regulate. They told us what to fear, but rarely showed what to heal. They declared what was real and banned what wasn't. But now the public is asking, who gave them that power? The Age of Aquarius is about decentralized truth, many voices, diverse perspectives, open dialogue, not curated consensus, not censorship disguised as safety. And that's why the media's grip is loosening, because you can't control an awakening mind. You can't spoon-feed narratives to a generation raised on algorithms and instant fact checks. You can't lie to a public that's learning to follow intuition over headlines. The internet, for all its flaws, has become a battlefield of perception, and people are learning how to navigate it with discernment. Yes, there's disinformation. Yes, there's confusion. But within that chaos, there's choice. And choice is power. This isn't about replacing one source of truth with another. It's about dissolving the idea that truth can be owned at all. When a system relies on manipulation to function, its collapse begins the moment people see through the illusion. And now, millions are seeing. So the old media machine sputters, the ratings drop, the trust evaporates, and a new paradigm begins to form. One rooted in transparency, community, and conscious conversation. Because when the mind awakens, the programming fails, and what's left is clarity. They told you money was freedom, that if you worked hard, played by the rules, and saved wisely, you'd earn your piece of the dream. But what they didn't say was that the game was rigged from the beginning. Inflation, debt, scarcity. These weren't accidents, they were mechanisms of control. Let's be honest, how can a system designed around perpetual debt ever lead to freedom? How can a currency, printed endlessly from thin air, hold real value? The truth is, the economy wasn't built to lift you up. It was built to keep you running, endlessly, on a wheel that never stops turning. Fiat currency, disconnected from any tangible anchor, gives central banks the power to manipulate entire populations. A quiet tax called inflation eats your savings silently. Meanwhile, wages stagnate, prices soar, and the cost of simply being alive becomes unbearable for the many, while the few profit. It's not just a system, it's a story that says your worth is tied to your productivity, that your time has a dollar value, that wealth is only real when it's hoarded. But that story is unraveling, because cracks are forming. Cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, peer-to-peer systems that bypass middlemen and break away from traditional banking empires. The emergence of new economic consciousness isn't just about tech, it's about reclaiming autonomy. People are starting to ask questions, big ones. Why do governments bail out billion-dollar banks while families can't afford rent? Why are trillions spent on war but not on healing? Why are we told there's not enough when the earth overflows with abundance? Because scarcity is a myth, manufactured, repeated, weaponized. You see it in the student loan trap, in the housing crisis, in the corporate ladder that always moves just out of reach. It's a spell, one designed to keep you small, afraid, dependent. But something is shifting. People are awakening to the deeper truth that money, in its current form, is not the goal. It's a tool that can either enslave or empower, depending on who controls it. And control is slipping. Younger generations are rejecting consumerism, exploring new models, cooperatives, bartering, shared economies. The old symbols of success, the luxury car, the corner office, feel hollow. Something deeper is calling. Purpose over profit, freedom over false security. This isn't just economic collapse, it's economic evolution. The systems built to siphon your energy are losing their grip. And as people pull back the curtain, they're realizing the truth. Money was never meant to free you, but your consciousness, that's untouchable. And in the space where fear once lived, now lives choice. The choice to redefine value, the choice to create, to exchange, to thrive on your own terms. Because when the old game ends, a new one begins. And this time, the rules are different. We call it education. But what if the system that claims to teach us was designed to tame us? From the moment we enter the school system, something happens. The imagination, boundless, wild, electric, is slowly quieted. The questions fade, the creativity dims, and in its place, we're handed answers, standardized, sanitized, safe. We're taught what to think, not how to think. The bell rings. We sit in rows. We memorize facts, many of which we'll forget. We're told to compete, to conform, to comply. And through it all, a silent message echoes beneath every lesson. Stay in line. Because the current education model wasn't built to awaken potential. It was built to produce predictable outcomes. Workers, consumers, citizens who obey. It's a system rooted in the industrial age, when factories needed disciplined labor, not visionary minds. And that system hasn't changed much. Chalkboards became smart boards. But the core remains the same. Linear, rigid, fear-based. Children are graded before they're even ready to define themselves. Intelligence is boxed into categories. Emotional depth, intuition, creativity, dismissed as irrelevant. The child who questions is labeled disruptive. The one who doesn't fit the mold is sent for correction. But what if the mold is the problem? Because we're not meant to be identical. We are not machines. We are not data points. We are souls, each carrying a unique frequency, a unique purpose. And yet, that purpose is rarely nurtured in classrooms. How many artists abandoned their craft for real jobs? How many empaths were told to toughen up? How many healers, inventors, free thinkers were silenced before they ever had a chance to bloom? This isn't education, it's domestication. But something's shifting. More and more people are stepping outside the system. Homeschooling is rising. Unschooling is challenging old assumptions. Conscious education models like Montessori, Waldorf, and holistic schools are offering a different path. One that sees the child as sacred, not a vessel to be filled, but a flame to be kindled. And as we move into higher consciousness, the need for true education becomes undeniable. Not just the transfer of information, but the awakening of wisdom. Not obedience, but sovereignty. Imagine a world where children are taught how to trust their inner guidance, to understand energy, emotion, intuition, to question systems, to create solutions, to remember who they are. Because in the age of Aquarius, we don't need more followers. We need conscious creators. The old education system is cracking, and in its collapse, something beautiful is emerging. A return to truth, to empowerment, to the sacred journey of learning, the kind that doesn't fit in a textbook, the kind that begins the moment you ask, not what should I be, but who am I here to become? For centuries, religion has claimed to hold the keys to heaven. It told us who God is and who we are not. It handed us sacred books and said, this is the only truth. It built temples, churches, mosques, and monuments, not just as places of worship, but as centers of power. And within their walls, we were taught to kneel, to obey, to believe, even when our soul whispered something different. Religion, in many forms, became a structure, a system, a set of rules written by men, claiming to speak for the divine, and those who questioned, labeled heretics, sinners lost. But now something ancient is stirring. The veil is lifting, because awakening doesn't come through blind belief. It comes through direct experience, through stillness, through the fire of inner knowing that no book, no priest, no doctrine can give you, and no institution can take away. All around the world, people are walking away from organized religion, not because they've lost faith, but because they've found something deeper, a connection not based on fear, but on presence. They're discovering that divinity doesn't reside in dogma, but in the quiet moments of the soul, in nature, in dreams, in breath, in the silent voice that rises during meditation, in the sacred space between thoughts. And that realization, it changes everything. Because when you no longer need permission to connect with God, you reclaim your power. The age of Pisces, with its emphasis on spiritual hierarchy, is ending. The age of Aquarius brings a new kind of spirituality, decentralized, personal, embodied. It invites you to turn inward, to see the sacred in yourself, to realize you are not separate from the divine. You never were. This shift is not an attack on faith. It's the resurrection of truth. Many ancient traditions understood this long before religion was institutionalized. The Gnostics spoke of the divine spark within. The mystics of every lineage, Sufis, Kabbalists, yogis, all pointed to inner revelation. Even Christ said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." But those teachings were buried, branded dangerous, because a sovereign soul can't be controlled. And now, those buried truths are surfacing again. People are praying differently, meditating, channeling, remembering, creating their own rituals, not rejecting the sacred, but reclaiming it from systems that profited off separation. The shift is undeniable. More and more, you'll hear people say, "I'm not religious, but I'm deeply spiritual." Because we are moving from dogma to direct connection, from hierarchy to wholeness, from fear of punishment to the remembrance of love. The divine isn't in the sky, it's in you, not something to worship from afar, but something to awaken from within. And once you feel it, once you know it, there's no going back. The systems outside are crumbling, but what's more disorienting and more sacred is what's collapsing inside. Because while governments fall, economies shift, and religions lose grip, something even more profound is unraveling. Your ego, not your identity, not your personality, but the false scaffolding of who you were taught to be. The version of you that was built for survival, not truth. The voice in your head that whispers fear, that clings to status, that performs for approval, that obeys to belong. That part is beginning to break, and at first, it feels terrifying. You might feel lost, uncertain. You might grieve things you thought defined you. The job, the role, the reputation, the mask. But this isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Because ego structures are just like any old system. They only hold power when they remain unquestioned. And now, in this Aquarian frequency of awareness, you're starting to ask, who am I, really? And that question shakes the foundation. You see, the ego was formed in the age of hierarchy, in the age of control. It was programmed to protect you by pleasing others, chasing perfection, playing small. It was wired to avoid shame, to outrun pain, to guard your image. But the soul doesn't need any of that. The soul doesn't pretend. The soul remembers. So now, as the old energy on the planet dissolves, your internal systems, the outdated beliefs, the inherited trauma, the false stories, are dissolving too. And it can feel like your inner world is falling apart. But what's really happening is that your truth is rising. You may cry more, question more, say no more. You may start choosing things not because they're safe, but because they're real. This is the ego's unraveling, and it's sacred. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." That's what this moment is for. The collapse within is not your failure, it's your freedom. Because on the other side of the identity, death is rebirth. Not of a new mask, but of your real self. The self that knows. The self that doesn't need validation. The self that isn't here to play by old rules, but to rewrite them entirely. So if you're feeling like nothing makes sense anymore, if your old goals don't excite you, if your desires are shifting, you're not broken. You're awakening. You're experiencing the inner reflection of what's happening globally. This isn't a surface-level transformation. It's a soul-level revolution. And every system that no longer fits your frequency will fall. Not because you failed, but because you've grown. And in that collapse, you're finally free to remember who you really are. Not the system's version, yours. When the system collapses, so does the identity it gave you. Because for so long, you weren't just living in the system, you were shaped by it. From the moment you entered this world, it told you who to be. A student, a worker, a patriot, a sinner, a number, a name. It gave you grades to chase, uniforms to wear, boxes to fit into. It gave you likes and labels, careers and categories. And with every choice, it asked you to forget who you really were. Not because you were flawed, but because your truth couldn't be controlled. So you adapted. You played the part. You became what would be accepted, applauded, promoted, protected. And somewhere along the way, the mask became your mirror. But now, the script is falling apart, and you're left asking the question you were never taught to ask. Who am I? Without it all. Not your job title, not your gender, not your religion, your degree, your status, your story. Who are you without the scaffolding? That question is uncomfortable, but it's holy, because identity, as the system taught it, was never about truth. It was about control. It made you a product of culture, not consciousness. A reflection of rules, not your radiance. But now, as the matrix dissolves, so do the masks. And you're being invited, not to find a new role, but to reclaim your essence. You are not your productivity. You are not your performance. You are not the opinions of those who never knew your soul. You are the presence underneath it all, the witness, the energy, the becoming, and yes, that space in between, where the old identity is gone but the new hasn't arrived. It can feel like a void, but that void is not emptiness. It's sacred space. It's where the soul speaks, not in language, but in resonance, in what pulls you, in what expands you, in what makes your heart remember something ancient and true. You're not here to replace one label with another. You're here to become something labels can't hold. A free being, a sovereign soul, a conscious creator. So if it feels like you've lost who you were, good, because who you were was a costume. Who you are is still emerging. Let the old identity die. Mourn it if you need to, but don't chase it back, because the truth of who you are was never something the system could define. It was only ever something you could remember, and that remembering is your revolution. You wake up feeling restless, like something shifting beneath your skin, a low hum of anxiety without a name, a heaviness in your chest, moments of clarity followed by waves of confusion. Your sleep patterns are chaotic, your emotions are unpredictable. One day you feel invincible, the next, like you're unraveling. You start to wonder, is something wrong with me? Something is right with you. You're not falling apart. You're falling open. Because this is what awakening often feels like. It doesn't come gently. It doesn't arrive with flowers and soft music. It storms in like a flood, washing away everything you once believed was solid. And in that process, the body, the mind, the soul, they all respond. The system taught you that anxiety means malfunction, that confusion is failure, that numbness is weakness. But what if these symptoms are actually signals? Messages from the soul saying, you can't keep living like this. You're not meant to stay asleep. The anxiety, it's the friction between your old self and your emerging self. Your spirit is outgrowing the cage it was placed in, and that tension becomes energetic turbulence. The confusion, it's your mind detoxing from lifetimes of programming. As illusions shatter, it takes time to rebuild clarity, but that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're shedding. The fatigue, the mood swings, the sudden intuition, they're not random. You're tuning into frequencies you were never trained to hear. Your body is learning a new language, the language of energy, of vibration, of truth. And sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is breathe through the breakdown. Let the waves crash. Let the false identities dissolve. Let the thoughts come, but don't make them your home. This isn't dysfunction. This is a recalibration, a rebirth. You're not alone in this. Millions are feeling the same shift, even if they can't name it, even if they try to numb it, suppress it, ignore it. But you're not ignoring it anymore. You're allowing it, you're feeling it, you're waking up through it, and that makes you dangerous to a world built on sleep. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember, you're not broken. You're breaking free. You're peeling away the layers that were never really you in the first place. And beneath all of it, the fear, the noise, the chaos, is a quiet whisper that says, keep going. There's light on the other side of this storm. There's you, waiting to meet you. There's a quiet voice inside you, one that's been drowned out by noise, rules, expectations. It's the voice that never screamed for attention because it never needed to. It waited, patiently, for the world to go quiet enough for you to hear it. And now, as systems collapse and the voices of false authority begin to lose their grip, that quiet voice grows stronger. The voice of intuition, your direct line to truth. For too long, humanity outsourced its knowing. We were told what to believe, what to fear, what to chase. We let institutions decide what's right and wrong. We were taught to ignore our gut in favor of external validation, to wait for permission from governments, gurus, degrees, doctrines. But now the veil is lifting, and what's being revealed is that the deepest guidance was never outside of us. Science has even begun to catch up. Studies in neurocardiology show that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Your body is intelligent. Your intuition isn't just a feeling. It's an ancient instrument, finely tuned to frequencies the mind can't always perceive. And in a world flooded with manipulated narratives, clickbait news, and controlled algorithms, it's not just helpful, it's essential. When systems of power fall apart, they leave a void, a vacuum where obedience used to be. And in that emptiness, you have a choice. You can rush to fill it with a new ideology, a new authority figure, or you can learn to listen again to the signals in your body, to the patterns in nature, to the subtle synchronicities that guide you without force. This return to intuition isn't just personal, it's planetary. Because when individuals stop needing external permission to evolve, they become ungovernable by systems rooted in fear. You can't manipulate someone who's listening to their soul. You can't enslave someone who's tuned into truth. And you can't control a population that no longer believes authority is something to obey, but something to outgrow. So if lately you felt unsure, like the map no longer makes sense, good. That map wasn't made for this terrain. You're not meant to follow old directions. You're meant to walk your own path and feel your way forward. This is the revolution they can't stop, because it isn't loud. It isn't televised. It's happening in hearts, quietly turning back inward, back to the compass that never needed permission. You always knew. There's a reason this moment feels heavy, a reason old emotions are surfacing, a reason your past is knocking louder than ever. It's not punishment. It's liberation in disguise. You see, the system didn't just shape the world around you. It shaped the world within you, and in doing so, it taught you to hide parts of yourself, to exile your anger, to bury your grief, to shame your desire, to silence your voice. And now, as the old systems collapse, so too do the walls inside you. This is shadow work, not some trendy spiritual buzzword, but the ancient alchemical process of facing the parts of you that were made to feel unworthy, the parts you had to suppress just to survive in a world that feared your wholeness. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about reclaiming what was never broken, only hidden. Because everything rising now, the doubt, the fear, the anger, the shame, it's surfacing for a reason. Not to destroy you, but to free you. Your shadows aren't villains, they're messengers. Each one carrying the key to a deeper truth, a forgotten memory, a locked up power. But the system never wanted you to know that. It taught you to perform instead of feel, to numb instead of heal, to project instead of reflect. Because when people avoid their shadows, they become easy to control. They seek external saviors. They follow the herd. They fear their own depth. But when you turn inward, when you meet your fear without judgment, when you hold your pain without abandoning yourself, you become sovereign. Shadow work is uncomfortable. It means owning your triggers, sitting with your inner child, witnessing your jealousies, your rage, your insecurities, and saying, I see you, I accept you, I love you. It's radical self-honesty. It's choosing awareness over blame, compassion over repression, integration over illusion. And the deeper you go, the more light you unlock, because the shadow isn't separate from the soul. It's the part of the soul waiting to come home. So if it feels dark right now, remember, the darkness isn't here to break you. It's here to break you open. You are not being punished. You are being purified, not by the system, but by the truth that's been waiting underneath it. This is the sacred fire. Let it burn through what no longer serves. Let it reveal who you really are. And when the smoke clears, you'll see there was never anything to fear in the dark, only power waiting to be reclaimed. The new Earth isn't a faraway land. It's not a utopia that governments will build. It's not a headline you'll read or a treaty you'll sign. The new Earth is a frequency, and frequencies aren't seen. They're felt, resonated with, lived into, while the old systems fight to stay relevant, to keep you plugged in through fear, noise, and division. A quieter revolution is already underway. Not in the streets, but in the soul. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle sense that something is emerging beneath the chaos. A truth that doesn't come from authority, but from alignment. The Age of Aquarius isn't about external saviors. It's about internal sovereignty. The new Earth is not a new map. It's a new vibration. One that begins within. And not everyone will feel it right away, because you can only perceive a reality you're in resonance with. The same way you can't tune into a radio station unless your frequency matches. It's not about waiting for the world to change. It's about becoming the change that reveals a new world. In the old Earth, you were conditioned to survive. In the new Earth, you're invited to create. In the old Earth, power was hierarchical. In the new Earth, power is vibrational. It's no longer about controlling others. It's about mastering your energy, holding presence, anchoring light. This is why you've been feeling more sensitive lately, why noise feels louder, why superficiality feels unbearable. You're tuning into a higher signal, and with it, the old noise becomes intolerable. But that's not a flaw. That's confirmation. Because the new Earth isn't built through force. It's built through frequency, compassion, integrity, resonance. Every time you choose awareness over reactivity, you're helping build it. Every time you speak truth instead of staying silent, you're helping build it. Every time you trust your intuition over external programming, you're helping build it. This isn't spiritual fluff. It's physics. The more people align with a higher state of consciousness, the more the collective field shifts. That's the tipping point. That's how the new replaces the old. Not through destruction, but through dissonance. The old systems collapse because they can't survive the frequency you're stepping into. And that's the invitation, to stop looking for the new Earth out there and start living it in here. In your choices, in your presence, in your daily alignment. Because once enough hearts hold the frequency, the world will have no choice but to reflect it. The shift won't be televised, but it will be felt in your nervous system, in your relationships, in the quiet moments when something inside whispers, you're already home. The future isn't global control, it's sovereign decentralization. And the signs are everywhere. For centuries, power has flowed upward into the hands of the few. Governments, banks, corporations, religions, systems designed to extract, regulate, and command. But something is shifting. And it's not just political or technological, it's energetic, because centralized power structures only survive when people are asleep, when we believe we need them, when we outsource our energy, our truth, our voice. But consciousness is rising, and in that rising, dependency collapses. The energy grid of the future, it's not a monopoly, it's solar rooftops, it's community microgrids, it's each household becoming a generator rather than a consumer. The economic system of the future, it's not billionaires dictating policy, it's peer-to-peer, it's crypto, it's digital exchange, not for speculation, but for liberation, because money, in its purest form, is just energy in motion. And when it flows freely, without middlemen or manipulation, it becomes a tool for empowerment, not enslavement. Even community is decentralizing. People are moving out of cities, away from noise and control, and into land, into circles, into sovereign living. We're remembering ancient ways, tribal wisdom, local farming, direct trade, not as a regression, but as evolution. Because what's decentralized is resilient. What's local is grounded. What's sovereign is sacred. The old paradigm told you to climb the ladder. The new paradigm asks you to build a village, to become the leader of your own space, to co-create instead of compete, to share instead of hoard. This isn't utopia, it's quantum reality, where frequency governs form and resonance shapes systems. So why is decentralization rising now? Because the collective soul is tired of being ruled, tired of waiting for permission, tired of being fed by systems that poison and governed by those who do not listen. Now we listen inward, and that inner alignment births outer autonomy. It's not just about breaking free, it's about building new systems that reflect consciousness, economies that respect life, energy that flows in harmony with the earth. We are not heading toward collapse, we're heading toward coherence, one where the power doesn't sit at the top, but circulates like breath, like current, like life. From global to local, from centralized to sovereign. This is the shift, not just in structure, but in spirit. And as you reclaim your own inner authority, you become a node in a new web, a decentralized heart-centered grid that no empire can control and no system can contain. This is how the new earth rises, not from a single throne, but from millions of awakened hearts, leading from within. Technology has never been neutral. It has always carried the consciousness of its creators, and for far too long, it's been wielded by systems rooted in control. The same algorithms that curate your feed are the ones that harvest your data. The same machines that connect the world are also used to monitor it. We were sold the dream of progress, but much of what we got was surveillance, distraction, and dependence. But now, a new question rises. What if technology could serve awakening instead of illusion? Artificial intelligence, blockchain, renewable energy, decentralized communication. These aren't just buzzwords. They are signposts of a paradigm shift. Used by the old guard, they amplify control. But in awakened hands, they become sacred tools. AI, for example, has been weaponized by corporations and governments to mimic human thought, to predict, to manipulate. But what if we used it to amplify wisdom instead of noise? What if we trained it not on fear-based data, but on ancient knowledge, healing arts, spiritual teachings? When aligned with consciousness, AI can help us spread light at speeds our ancestors could never imagine. The same applies to blockchain and decentralized systems. Once the domain of shadowy financial markets, they now hold the keys to peer-to-peer empowerment, where no single entity controls the flow of resources. In the old model, money was hoarded and leveraged to enslave. In the new, it can be shared and moved with transparency, intention, and sovereignty. Technology is not the enemy, the programming behind it is, and the world is waking up to this distinction. When we approach innovation with sacred intention, rooted in awareness, service, and harmony, even the most advanced systems can reflect light. But if we remain unconscious, technology will continue to mirror our shadows. Addiction, escapism, division. You may have felt conflicted lately, drawn to new tech, but cautious, excited, but also overwhelmed. That's natural. You're not just navigating devices, you're navigating the moral architecture behind them. And your discernment matters more than ever. Because in this Aquarian age, tech is no longer just external, it's becoming internal. Neural links, bio-enhancements, AI integrations, all these raise urgent questions about the soul's sovereignty. Will we use these tools to awaken our dormant potential, or to escape ourselves entirely? The answer isn't found in the machines. It's found in the intention we bring to them. Used consciously, technology can help us remember ancient truths, connect across dimensions, and heal wounds once thought unreachable. It can be a mirror, not of our lower nature, but of our infinite one. The choice is here. And it's not just a choice about gadgets or platforms. It's about who we become when we create and when we click. Because in the end, the most powerful system is not the one outside you. It's the one you carry within. There is a kind of activism rising now. One that doesn't march with signs or shout in the streets, yet still shifts reality at its roots. It's not passive, but it's not violent either. It's something deeper. It's spiritual. For generations, we were taught that change had to be loud, that protest was the only way to be heard. But now, something different is emerging. A quiet, unwavering frequency of truth that moves through presence, not performance, through alignment, not aggression. This is the path of the awakened. Spiritual activism doesn't reject action, it refines it. It recognizes that the outer world is a mirror of the inner one, and so the revolution begins within. In every breath we take consciously, in every system we refuse to fuel with our energy, in every word we speak that breaks a spell. This isn't about bypassing injustice, it's about transmuting it without becoming it. Because if we fight the old system with the same frequency that built it, anger, division, domination, then we keep it alive. We may change the faces in power, but the structure remains. That's why true change has to come from a different vibration. Spiritual activism listens deeply. It speaks when aligned. It acts when guided, not from reaction, but from clarity. It doesn't seek enemies to defeat, but illusions to dissolve. And it knows that the system isn't just out there. It's in our beliefs, our behaviors, our unconscious agreements. You've already felt it. That tug inside you to live differently, to buy less, breathe more, to stop arguing and start creating. That's not weakness, that's awakening. And it's more powerful than we've been led to believe. Because when enough of us drop out of the control matrix, not in rebellion, but in resonance with a higher truth, the old world loses its grip. Not through war, but through obsolescence. This movement doesn't wear uniforms or carry flags. Its symbols are silence, stillness, presence, the courage to sit with your own shadows, the discipline to choose love even when fear is louder. And no, it won't always be comfortable. Spiritual activism asks everything of you: to question what you were taught, to hold space in chaos, to act without applause. But it also gives everything in return: peace, power, purpose. You are not here to escape this world. You're here to infuse it with light. You don't have to fix everything, but you are responsible for your frequency. And that frequency, when anchored in love and truth, is contagious, revolutionary, unstoppable. So don't underestimate what you are doing by healing yourself, speaking with integrity, refusing to fuel the noise. You are participating in the greatest transformation of our time, not by fighting the system, but by no longer being a battery for it. For too long, the world has been out of balance. Not just politically, not just socially, energetically. We've been living under systems built almost entirely on distorted masculine energy, control, conquest, linear thinking, domination. And in response, the sacred feminine was pushed underground. Intuition became irrational. Emotions became weakness. Nurturing was labeled passive. But what you're feeling now, in your body, in the world, is the beginning of a reunion. Not a war between genders, not another social pendulum swing, a vibrational realignment. The sacred masculine and divine feminine aren't human roles. They are cosmic principles, archetypal forces that shape all of creation. When in harmony, they birth wholeness. When divided, they produce confusion, oppression, and suffering. The sacred masculine isn't about aggression, it's presence, direction, integrity, the stable container that holds space for growth and transformation. It builds, protects, and acts with clarity, not ego. The divine feminine isn't about submission, it's creation, flow, receptivity, the wild intelligence of nature. She births the new, nourishes the unseen, and anchors feeling as a form of wisdom. Together, they are the rhythm of life itself. One is the riverbank, one is the water. And this reunion is not just happening in culture, it's happening in you. Maybe you've noticed yourself craving softness even as you lead, or finding strength in stillness, not just doing. Maybe your dreams are more vivid, your intuition sharper, your truth harder to suppress. That's not chaos, that's integration. This sacred marriage inside you is the foundation for every system that will replace the old. Because without it, we rebuild brokenness in new clothes. But with it, we birth a civilization that honors both wisdom and action, structure and flow, vision and compassion. This is not about erasing polarity. It's about healing the wound between them. The distorted masculine tells you to push, perform, achieve at all costs. The distorted feminine tells you to wait, shrink, and sacrifice your voice. But the awakened masculine says, I will protect what is sacred. And the healed feminine replies, I will create what is true. This sacred reunion isn't a utopian fantasy. It's ancient memory resurfacing. Mystery schools taught it. Indigenous cultures embodied it. And now, the earth is demanding it again. Because the systems built on imbalance are crumbling. And in their place, we're being asked to embody something deeper. This new world won't be built by force. It will be woven from the inside out. When your actions come from presence and your words come from intuition. When your goals are rooted in service, not just success. When your strength holds space for tenderness. That's when the sacred masculine and divine feminine are no longer just concepts. They're lived. And when enough of us live them, the entire world changes. You weren't born at this time by accident. You didn't just show up to pay bills, scroll endlessly, and wonder why the world feels upside down. No, your soul chose this exact moment, because this is the great transition, the collapse of old systems, the rise of new frequencies, the unveiling of forgotten truths, and you, yes you, are here for it. You felt it, haven't you? That quiet sense that you don't fully belong in the old world, that the rules never made sense, that the noise, the pressure, the speed, all of it felt like a distraction, a dream, a script written for someone else. That's not dysfunction, that's design. You are wired to question, to remember, to awaken. And that remembering often looks like confusion at first, pain, grief, loss of identity. Because before you can rise into what you really are, everything that isn't you must fall away. That's why it's felt heavy, lonely, disorienting. But this chaos, this collapse, it's your classroom. Not because life is punishing you, but because your soul signed up for Earth School during the most radical curriculum it's ever offered. And the curriculum is simple: evolve or repeat. You are part of the wave of souls who said, yes, I'll go. I'll carry the codes, I'll hold the light, I'll remember through the forgetting. And so, you were born into systems that didn't see you, families that didn't understand you, cultures that numbed you. But through it all, something deeper remained untouched. That quiet knowing, that sacred flicker, that pulse in your chest that whispers, you're here for more. And now, that whisper is becoming a roar, because timelines are splitting, choices are speeding up, the illusion is dissolving, and what's left is your deepest truth, your frequency, your essence. So the question is no longer, will the world change? It already is. The question is, will you align with it? Will you choose presence over performance? Will you choose truth over comfort? Will you choose your inner guidance over external approval? Because every moment you're casting your vote, not at the ballot box, but in your energy, your focus, your courage to embody a new way of being in a world that doesn't quite understand it yet. And that is why you are born now. You are not just watching the old systems collapse. You are the living frequency that will build what comes next. So breathe, ground, remember. Your soul came prepared for this. This is not the end. It's the initiation. And you were born for this. This isn't a war like the ones you were taught about in history books. There are no soldiers in trenches, no bombs falling from skies, no leaders on podiums rallying armies. But make no mistake, this is a war for your mind, your energy, your soul. It's a spiritual war, the oldest kind there is, and it's fought in silence, in shadows, in scrolls, in choices. No bullets, just belief systems. No tanks, just timelines. No chains, just distractions disguised as freedom. This war isn't about land or money. It's about frequency, the vibration you live in, breathe in, choose in. It's about whether you remember who you are or forget. And you won't see it on the news, because the media is part of the battlefield. You won't be told it's happening, because if you knew, you'd wake up, and the old system can't survive your awakening. So it fights with illusions, with fear, with noise. It keeps you spinning in drama, in division, in doubt. But the real warriors? They don't wear uniforms. They carry light. They walk with presence. They speak in truth. They heal with vibration. Some are artists. Some are parents. Some are alone in their rooms right now, transmuting pain into peace, rewriting reality from the inside out. That's how this war is won. Through breath, through clarity, through the refusal to numb out, check out, or sell out. The front lines are in your thoughts, your food, your technology, your reactions, and the weapon, awareness. Every time you choose presence over panic, you win. Every time you ask why instead of blindly obeying, you win. Every time you heal a wound your lineage was too tired to face, you win for them too. And when you vibrate truth, not speak it, not debate it, but be it, you dismantle the lie without lifting a finger. That's why they fear the awakened. Not because they're loud, but because they're clear. Not because they rebel, but because they remember. They remember who they are, why they came, and what cannot be controlled. This is not about choosing sides. It's about choosing soul. Because the final battle, it's not external, it's internal. Will you collapse into the fear or rise into the frequency? Will you be a pawn in someone else's system or a sovereign in your own? This is a spiritual war, and in the end, light wins, always. The collapse isn't coming. It's already here, not in some distant future, not in the next election, not when the markets crash or the headlines scream. It's here, quietly unraveling beneath the surface of your daily life. You feel it, not just in the world out there, but in your nervous system, in your relationships, in the way your soul whispers, this isn't sustainable. Systems that once seemed unshakable are showing their cracks. Banks, governments, education, religion. They're not just faltering, they're dissolving. Because their foundations were never built on truth. They were built on control. You can feel it in how hard they try to hold on. The louder the noise, the more fragile the structure. The more fear they sell, the closer they are to losing their grip. This collapse is not accidental. It's not chaotic. It's sacred. It's the death of a lie we've lived inside for too long. A lie that told us we had to earn our worth. That power belonged to the few. That survival mattered more than truth. That obedience was safer than awakening. But the veils are thinning. And what's emerging isn't destruction. It's sovereignty. Sovereignty isn't rebellion. It's remembrance. It's when you stop outsourcing your power to systems that don't see your soul. It's when you begin to ask, what do I really know? What do I really feel? And then you trust that, above the noise. This is not about preparing for collapse. It's about realizing you were born for it. Because when false systems fall, true self rises. And in the rubble of what was, a new rhythm begins, not dictated by fear or profit, but by alignment, by clarity, by energy. So when you look around and see chaos, breathe. You're not witnessing the end of the world. You're witnessing the end of illusion. And it's uncomfortable. The old maps no longer guide you. The old stories no longer define you. The anchors are gone. Because you're being invited to float into your own inner compass. That's the initiation. The collapse isn't a punishment. It's an initiation into presence, into awareness, into remembering that your power was never out there. So don't wait for some siren to tell you it's time. It's time now. To unplug from the noise, to root into your own truth, to step forward not in panic, but in purpose. The system is crumbling, but you're not. You're rising, and in that rise, a new world begins. Everything in this reality is frequency, not metaphorically, literally. Your thoughts have a frequency. Your emotions have a frequency. Even your silence pulses with a signal. For so long, the systems we lived in fed off one specific frequency: fear. Fear was the currency. Fear was the glue. Fear was the cage disguised as order. They told you who to be afraid of, what to chase, what to lose sleep over. And in doing so, they didn't just control your actions, they controlled your energy. Because when you live in fear, your frequency lowers. And when your frequency lowers, you're easier to manipulate, easier to program, easier to exhaust. But now the question is no longer what the system wants from you. The question is, what are you choosing to resonate with now? What frequency will you embody? Because this collapse isn't just dismantling buildings and policies. It's dismantling identities, attachments, addictions to chaos. The parts of us that felt more comfortable in dysfunction than in our own stillness. And in this raw space, this unstructured, unpredictable, wide-open energy, you have a choice to tune into the same old cycle or to rise into a new vibration entirely. Will you choose anxiety or alignment, reaction or reflection, fear or presence? It starts with what you give your attention to, because attention is voltage. And where voltage flows, reality grows. The systems fed off you not because you were weak, but because you were powerful. And your energy was never meaningless. It was sacred. They just convinced you otherwise. Now you reclaim it. You get to be intentional with the media you consume, the voices you listen to, the stories you repeat in your mind. This is not spiritual bypassing. It's spiritual recalibration. Because even while the outer world shakes, you get to be still. Even while the noise screams, you get to be silent. Even as the old programs try to pull you back in, you remember you've already outgrown them. You are not here to fix the system. You are here to out-vibrate it. And in doing so, you become the transmission. Not with words, but with being. Let the old frequency crumble. Let the noise fade. Let your energy become sovereign again. Because in the end, that's what this transition is asking. Not how much you know, not how woke you are, but what you're vibrating. That's the revolution now. Not outside, but inside you. So pause, breathe, and ask yourself, right now, what frequency are you feeding? Because that's the world you're creating. The systems are collapsing, the veils are thinning. But the real revolution, it was never outside of you. Not in the protests, not in the policies, not even in the collapse. Because the true uprising, the one they could never prepare for, is the one happening in your consciousness. You were never just a witness to this timeline. You were always a frequency holder, a pattern breaker, a lighthouse in the fog. And now, as everything around you seems to disintegrate, the masks, the roles, the illusions, you're being called inward, not to escape, but to remember. You are not here to rebuild what's broken. You are here to birth something that's never existed before, a world that aligns with truth, with soul, with the divine current that flows through all things. But first, that revolution has to happen inside. Not with violence, not with force, but with the quiet courage to face your shadows and still choose light, to dismantle the programming that says you're not enough, to dissolve the voices that taught you to obey before you listen to yourself, to transmute fear into presence, doubt into vision, separation into wholeness. This is where it begins, with your breath, with your awareness, with your refusal to numb out, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because pain too can be sacred. It's the echo of old systems dying within you, not as punishment, but as passage. The revolution is when you stop waiting to be saved, when you realize that nothing external has the authority to define you, that the temple, the truth, the teacher, they've always lived inside your chest. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're awakening. And as you rise, the world around you does too, because frequency is contagious, and healing is a ripple. The moment you reclaim your power, you become the proof that a new way is possible. Not just in theory, but in embodiment. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present. So yes, the systems are collapsing. The illusions are fading. The old world is dying. But you are just beginning. You are not here to run. You are here to remember, to anchor the new, to walk it, to speak it, to live it. And when enough of us do, the revolution won't need a name, because it will already be happening. Within us, around us, through us. Not with noise, but with resonance. Not with fear, but with love. And in that moment, you'll understand. The collapse was never the end. It was the awakening. The world you once trusted is dissolving. The systems you were taught to follow are losing their grip. And maybe, somewhere deep inside, you felt it too. A quiet knowing, a whisper beyond the noise. You weren't here to watch the collapse. You were born to remember who you are in the midst of it. To stand steady as the old falls away. To become the bridge between what was and what's awakening. So if this message stirred something in you, if you felt seen, validated, or simply reminded that you're not alone, don't let it stop here. Scroll through the comments. You'll see reflections from others who are waking up just like you. Voices from around the world, echoing the same inner shift you've been feeling. And if you're ready, join the conversation. Share what resonated with your soul. You never know who might need to hear your words. Then subscribe to The Hidden Voyage, because this isn't just a channel, it's a sanctuary. A soul gathering for the ones who came to awaken. We're not here to fix the old. We're here to embody the new. And that revolution, it starts within. Soul Whisper and Soul Creator. The Hidden Voyage. If this journey moves something in you, don't let it end in silence. Let it echo. Share it with someone still afraid to speak of death, still avoiding the mirror, still pretending time is infinite. Let this video be the hand you extend, the torch you pass, the doorway they didn't know they were seeking. Leave a comment, not just to speak, but to witness. What part of you is beginning to awaken? What have you been avoiding that now asks to be seen? And if your soul feels ready to keep walking, deeper, quieter, truer, then this is your place. Not just a channel, but a temple. Subscribe and join a circle of seekers who no longer run from the end because they've begun to live from it. We release these videos like offerings, each one a prayer, each one a mirror, each one a map to awaken before the end, to remember who you are beneath the name, to walk together toward what cannot die, one breath at a time, one truth at a time, one sacred step on the hidden voyage. Soul Whisper and Soul Creator. The Hidden Voyage.